AITA for not taking in my parents' adopted son. Throwaway account. I'm 28ym. I had average childhood. My parents provided everything, but nothing extra. When I was 17 they decided to adopt another child. Chris 7ym. I went to university at 18 and moved out. My parents told me they could not financially help me because they have another child now. I admit, I resented that. I had to work and go to college. For the first 2 years I couldn't get into university dorms, so I had to rent, which was much more expensive. I can't count how many times I hadn't eaten for 23 days. It was horrible and I consider that the worst experience of my life. It got easier after I got into dorms. But I still couldn't afford anything extra, like going to a party or such. In all these years I slowly distanced myself from my parents and I don't see Chris as my brother. To this day we see each other max 2 times a year. Even though we live 25 minutes away, they don't even know I married my partner. This happened at Christmas dinner. In the middle of dinner my parents told me that Chris is going to university in the same city I live and if he could stay with me, they would pay for rent and expenses. Now, I live in the townhouse in the middle of all faculties. I'm in prime spot. I don't rent rooms. But if I would, rent would be highest in the city. I was triggered when my parents said they would pay for him. So I said that they can't afford to rent a room in my place and to look elsewhere. All family there were shocked by my response. And my parents were somewhat taken aback. Since then a couple of family members told me I'm in awe for not helping my family. My parents texted me to reconsider and help my brother and that he is very upset his big brother won't help him. I told them he is their son. But he is not my brother and I have no obligation towards him. Even Chris texted me and begged me to reconsider but I just ignore him. And everyone else for that matter. The problem is my partner, who is good kind soul and is starting to get to me. So, what do you think? NTA. Your parents or other family did not help you. You don't have to help them. Your adopted brother is not your responsibility. They are willing to pay for him so he will be okay either way. In the first place, you would have no obligation to rent him a room even if you did consider him to be your brother. Living with someone is a big deal, whether they are family or not. There are many ways for roommate situations to go horribly badly, even when all the people involved are basically good people. When one is a teenager just starting college, and the other is a married adult who has been forced to support himself for a decade. That is not likely to be a good roommate match. But you don't consider him to be your brother. And that is largely due to the choices that your parents made. I know a couple who adopted 4 young children. Long story, it started out as 1, then a second 2 years later. Then things happened and it became 4 overnight, while their biological daughter was in college. But the couple made sure that their older daughter knew that she was valued and loved. They continued to help support her while she was in college, despite the fact that they hadn't planned on having the expense of 4 more kids. And she still came home for holidays, lived at home for the first year post-college until she found a place of her own. And while she obviously doesn't have the same sibling bond with the young ones that they have with each other, she's almost like a beloved aunt to them. And that's because the couple never acted like her needs were any less important than the other children. NTA. Not because they asked about Chris living with you. That would have been N-A-H. But because they are refusing to accept your no as an answer. Anyone who is still giving you a hard time should be told in no uncertain terms. My parents didn't care that I went hungry when I was Chris's age. And they didn't even know that I was married. We are hardly close enough for them to ask this huge favor of me. If you want to give Chris a place to live while he is going to college, feel free. NTA. Your partner and everyone else needs to back off. Your parents didn't care about you guys being family until they saw money to be made. To your partner, I think you need to be very, very clear. Having this person in my house will hurt me. I am not interested in letting you or anyone else hurt me. Why can't Chris live at home if you live in the prime location that's only 25 minutes away? I think all my dorms were more than 25 minutes away from uni. NTA. I am sure your spouse's heart is in the right place, but they need to stay out of this and support whatever you need to do. Your parents made a series of decisions that hurt you. Both emotionally and in practical terms, you were basically abandoned and you managed to get yourself through school. You didn't specify, but I am assuming that you are in the US and that their income made you ineligible for financial aid despite the fact that they declined to provide that anticipated family contribution. They should not expect you to have a sibling bond with Chris, who I do feel bad for. None of this is his fault, and who knows what they've told him to explain your absence from his life without owning up to their own failings. And it was an outrageously manipulative move to make their proposal about Chris living with you at a holiday meal with an audience. Putting you on the spot like that was vile. Even without the slap in the face about their helping Chris with college in ways they would not help you. Even if you were crazy about Chris and had a good relationship with your folks, you still wouldn't be obligated to take a teenager into your home. That's a lot to ask under the best of circumstances and under the circumstances you're describing. It is unthinkable. You may want to tell them the real reason and explain that you didn't want to air that laundry at the table. You have made a life for yourself, and your parents have a lot of nerve to think they are allowed to disrupt it. NTA. If they're willing to pay for his education, let them pay another accommodation, possibly far from the environment you created yourself without their help. NTA. It's okay to have reasonable and justifiable boundaries, and stick to them. People will always come at you with, but family is family. But that isn't a trump card. Especially if your parents can't even acknowledge the double standard and extreme hardship you had to go through that they could have helped alleviate. It sounds like you barely have a relationship, so you'd be essentially housing a stranger. And an 18-year-old at that, who will likely want to go out, have friends over, and generally engage in college activities that you might not want in your home. Since then, a couple of family members told me I'm in awe for not helping my family. Great. Then they can provide Chris with a place to live. NTA. NTA. Just because they're blood doesn't mean they are family. It would be like renting out to strangers, but for cheaper rent. Family is important, seems to only matter when the parents want something. NTA. I've lived that college experience when you're justifying to the pence every single thing you buy, and I understand where you're coming from. Either they saved for college for you and then reallocated that money to support their new son, or they didn't save and sprung that on you at 17. Either way isn't great. That they're expecting you to help them give their son a better college experience is completely tone deaf on their part. That they think it's okay to give him monetary support and have him stay with you when they left you with nothing is cold. NTA. As you said, he isn't your brother. He's merely their son. You're not obligated to family. Don't let anyone guilt you into thinking otherwise. If they're willing to pay for his rent, tell them to find their kid an apartment for when he goes to college. Feel free to block whomever attempts to give that stupid "but he's family" nonsense. Hold your ground. NTA. When family comes at you for not helping Chris, ask them why they didn't help you when your parents wouldn't give you anything for your college expenses. Ask them why they didn't tell your parents to help you with college or offer help in their stead. Now, while you're not neither is Chris. You should talk to him separately and explain what you went through, as he probably has no idea what happened. You're not obligated to help him, but you shouldn't treat him as if he's at fault for your parents' misbehavior. But as another commenter pointed out, you could agree to serve as a local resource, emergency contact for him. NTA. It's as simple as this. You don't have rooms for rent. End of. If they're paying for all of Chris's expenses, they can pay for a spot in a dorm for him. He may be your parents' son, but by their own work, he's not your brother. They pretty much abandoned you for him. Where were they when you had to do days without eating in order to make ends meet? Where were they in general? When Chris was growing up 25 minutes away from you and seeing you twice a year? For all intents and purposes, you two are extended family members, connected only by your parents. Not to mention they were definitely trying to pressure you into saying yes. They asked you at Christmas dinner in front of the rest of the family. They were trying to make it impossible for you to deny it. Your partner may be nice, but they also need to realize that this situation isn't so straightforward. Because you know that if he moves in, you're going to be reminded of every night you spent working and starving while he's getting all his bills paid by them. Plus, a 28-year-old and a partner wouldn't mesh well with an 18-year-old college student renting a room. Those are two very different stages of life, and I can guarantee you that Chris moving in will mean you'll see a lot more of your parents, which definitely won't help the feelings you already have. NTA. Taking on a second child is not a reason to neglect the first. How can they not have helped you? It sounds like Chris wanted for nothing when sacrifices could have been made to ensure that you didn't struggle nearly as much as you did. FFS. That's what Costco memberships are for. You probably didn't handle it the best, but you're NTA for not wanting to help. If they can afford to rent a room for him, when they couldn't for you, then they can rent somewhere else. NTA. But either is Chris. You are not obliged to take him in. If you did rent a room, it should be at whatever is fair in the area. It's great when people decide to give a child in need a home, but that can't mean they ignore their other kids as a result. You don't owe your folks anything. You've made a life without them. The fact they see you 2x a year but don't know you're married also means they've never bothered asking and haven't made an effort to get to know your partner. The thing with Chris, no, he's not your brother, but he's just as innocent in this as you are, i.e., he's a kid with parents who made plans that suited them just like they did with you. For you it was, you're on your own. We don't have money. For Chris it's, we don't have much money, live with your brother. Also, it's likely he doesn't know what happened with you and your parents. He's only gotten their side of it, and he may genuinely consider you his big brother. No, that doesn't mean you have to reciprocate, but it may just lend some empathy to him. Your feelings are valid, but even if you don't want Chris living with you, perhaps at some point you and spouse could be the adults he knows in the city, i.e. somebody to have lunch with, to tell him where to go, not go around town, and call in case of emergency. He might be a decent young man that you and partner could have a relationship independently from your parents. Not as a brother, but as a young friend. NTA. First, you have no obligation to someone who you have no relationship with. You are indifferent to the kid at best, and you don't have a good relationship with your parents. While it is all well and good to adopt a child, it shouldn't be done at the expense of existing children any more than one should have biological children one can't afford. While no one is entitled to a free ride at college, OP's situation seems quite extreme in terms of the financial hardship his parents made him go through, including lack of food. Also, you have no need for a roommate. Why in the world would you want your life disturbed by any Stranger and the brother is a stranger. It would be one thing to take in a sibling with whom you had a sibling relationship as a favor. Quite another to take in a stranger. Also, I don't quite understand the finances. If the parents are willing to pay for the kid, why doesn't he just rent someplace else? Why does it have to be with OP? Are they expecting OP to actually subsidize the cost of room and food and utilities? NTA, take account of all the money that you spent for your education. Quadruple it and tell your parents that is how much they will owe you for 1 year of hosting your brother. Sounds fair to me. NTA. As a mom, my heart breaks for you. Your parents effectively threw you out to survive on your own so they could play Doover family with a new child. And, assuming you're American, the way FOFSA works, the powers that be would have taken their income into account and limited how much, if any, financial assistance you could get. Don't get me wrong, I think adoption is a wonderful thing, but I firmly believe a parent owes it to their child to help support them even after age 18 while their child gets their feet under them and able to support themselves. If adopting a child means they can't afford to finish raising another to independence, then they need to hold off a few years. I know some people believe that their children should be kicked out of the nest to survive on their own once they turn 18. But to let you go hungry and not offer any help or support, I'd go hungry myself before I let my child technically adult or not go hungry. The fact that your parents did that to you, but are planning to support their younger son and expecting you to help them do that through college is adding insult to injury. What a slap in the face. NTA, but your partner needs to understand that your parents let you starve and fend for yourself. But they are paying for everything for their other child and expecting you to contribute. This is emotional abuse. That insane expectation that they have from you, that you would possibly consider helping them out, is abuse. And then the guilt and the gaslighting making you out to be the bad person when you were basically abandoned as a teen. Your partner needs to be on your side on this one, or she needs to go if she can't wrap her sweet good soul around the fact that you are trying to keep yourself from being triggered and further emotionally abused by these people. Time to go and see with your entire family and get the trash out of your life. NTA. You don't owe them anything. Quite literally, as they never really supported you once you turned 18. I think your partner needs to understand how this situation would be pretty bad for your mental health and could feed the resentment even more. Having a constant reminder of how your parents didn't support you but are paying rent for their other kid would suck really bad, especially since they haven't really tried to mend the relationship with you in all those years.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.